While the first Masters of the year is already over, I decided I didn't want to dive into the winners just yet, because during the start of the playoffs, the favorites for a lot of teams going into the season in the Super Team Vitality completely crumbled under the pressure.
Save the IGL, the captain, the only one, and it cannot get it done! 13-5! T1!
In what was humiliating fashion to not win a single match against the very top of the Valorant world. So there are so many questions whirling around this team now that they're getting ready for the regional split 1. So I decided to quickly look through what happened to Vitality, and if these problems could actually be exposing something a lot more destructive for this team. Going into the season, Vitality were the biggest talk because in just a few months, they transformed their roster that showed some promise in Europe with Safe and Trex to a bona fide super team, as they picked up 2 of the best players in Valorant history in their positions, in Les and Durka. So right away, Vitality were raised from mid part of the table regionally to the very top of the Valorant world, with everything other than an international trophy being a failure of a season, an extremely high bar for any team. But regionally during the kickoff event, they stepped up to the challenge right away. They would face a formidable opponent in the other French org, Carmine Corp, who also made some shocking changes. And in this match, it almost worked as they pushed the super team to a map 3, where Carmine had 2 big chances to send down this team to elimination right away. Luckily for Vitality, their superstar status helped them win in the end.
One, he goes for it, but he can't get what he needs here. Turned away, but he hits back hard. Safe, Durka in unison this time, combining on the back of the site. This might be the one. Sugetsu was meant to be the lurk, meant to be the final blow. But sadly for Carmine Corp, they couldn't make it to the site. Vitality.
And move on to play Foot. Here, they look like what everyone was thinking they would look like against Carmine, as they stomped by not just out-aiming them with, which is impressive against a Turkish team, but they won because of their set plays. As Kix, who was viewed as their weakest link before the season started, looked incredible on Bind.
Does he get to keep it? Oh my god, does he get to win it, Lawrence? There's only a flash left for Cracks, there's still a chance in this one!
And was impressive with the breach to set up Les and Durka for kills, to run away with it, which, to a lot of people's shock, continued against Team Heretics, who didn't look like themselves at all going into the season. And Vitality just feasted on
But
them.
the map was anything but Vitality. They got there in the end.
With the BIS being a humiliation to Heretics, as they won 13-1 to advance not only to the grand finals, but already qualified for Masters Bangkok.
Scene being run over, and it's less to do the damage. 13-1, barely a...
So already the first goal had been accomplished with ease, as they even had more confidence going into the Masters now that Kix is also proving himself as a player who can keep up with the rest of the talent on this team. But while they were able to lift the regional trophy against the surprising Team Liquid, there were some murmurs of possible holes in this team's skill sets, as they had such a powerful team with no one likely to struggle mechanically or even strategically when they're on it. Safe as a leader hasn't really looked like the IGL to be able to adapt quickly, as while his own individual game sense is incredible, there are moments in the Liquid game where they were able to find issues in their game plan and would continue to exploit it, such as their weak sight holds on Haven, or their inability to tap to Liquid's prodding in mid on split, where Safe couldn't steer his team into a winning strategy or mid-round call, which pushed them to needing to reverse sweep them, which they could do since they're so incredibly talented.
All alone will have no chance. And clearly, the shots from Kamek will not land. And another big lead by example. That trophy calls out to Vitality, and they answer the call. Safe.
So while they were able to lift the trophy and stamp themselves as favorites going into the first Masters of the season, some fans were nervous for when they started playing the best teams, who are always shifting their game plan round after round. So this would be more of a test on the coaching staff and Safe, rather than showing proof that these superstars are still world-class players, and they really did do that in the Swiss stage, as they first won 2 not-so-close maps against T1.
Vitality clean it all up in the end, 13-9, 2-0.
And then qualified first for the playoffs by finishing off DRX in map 3 during the final round of regulation.
And still holding on to this side, still somehow still alive, but it's not enough! Vitality! It took them a long time, but the super team from EMEA are the first squad in the playoffs.
So now going into the final 4 of the tournament, Durka has probably been the player of the tournament, with the all-time kill record. Safe's IGL hasn't hurt the team at all, and everyone else looked solid when it mattered. So there was no reason to believe that in playoffs they look much different. But that's when the wheels would completely fall off for this team and reveal major weaknesses that they have because they couldn't hide it against the top 2 teams in the tournament. In their match against G2, they were neck and neck through their map pick a bind, going all the way to overtime before G2 could pull it out in the end. But if you look early on into the map, it actually shouldn't have been that close because it's something Vitality couldn't adjust to. They couldn't stop G2's retakes on either site, as G2 knew that they would have to fight directly against Vitality's attacks and not give any space after the plant, rather than waiting and completely regrouping for a set play. Every time they just kept the pressure on Vitality in the post plant, they would win duels as the fast chaos overwhelmed this more individual focused team that had issues communicating consistently. With them down 0-1 in the series, going into the map that G2 really cooked up to counter Vitality, it was just too much. Vitality had to win their map pick to have a chance because at this point at the top of the game, every player on the stage can win duels, so Durka or Les couldn't just take over as many rounds as they would have back in previous seasons, because G2 is just way too structured for that, sending them down to elimination right away.
There's no surviving, and G2 get what they want!
The first team to be able to take down Vitality, 6-0 this year with this roster before G2 matched up against them.
Against T1, who they had already handily beaten, they felt like a top 3 finish was in their future, but then T1 would start their fairy tale run and leave the super team in the dust. At the start of Lotus, T1, just like G2, figured out a strategy that worked and just spammed it, as Vitality would fight initially for sight but would always retreat to find a good time to regroup. But then T1 would be in aggressive spots and catch them off guard, as while Vitality is incredibly gifted, they sometimes have a hard time playing off each other, and it's especially obvious when they play a team that's working together at a very high level like T1. Durka and Trex would help to pull it back to force another overtime, which in this case they would win, but it wasn't as solid as you would want from them when they are the favorites by a good margin, especially when the other 2 maps didn't look like Vitality at all, with them losing the first duel almost 70% of the rounds. Something that for Vitality they cannot do if they want to win these big matches, as this is kind of their bread and butter, always taking the advantage right away in rounds with their superior star power and grinding them out in the rest of the round. Instead, T1 flipped the script and did it to them on Haven and Split to eliminate them.
The only one, and it cannot get it done! 13-5! T1 earn their position in the lower final!
Leaving all of Vitality shocked, as just a week before, they seemed miles ahead of this South Korean team, and really it showed the inability to shift their strategies once they get countered, especially in a rematch against a top tier team who can shift their plan to take advantage of the soft spots in the roster, finishing in a not so desirable 4th place, with them viewing these last 2 matches as somewhat of a failure, which is crazy for any team, but this is how much everyone was expecting from them. Make sure you subscribe and check out my video with Zeph on Hidden Levels, all about the early start of the FPS genre. It's one of my best videos yet.